Good morning to all my loyal followers and friends. It's Angie from Little Dumplings Nursery that you hear in the background. Excuse me. And this is a quick Saturday morning follow-up video. I'm still standing in my nightgown, to be honest, so I'm not going to show you myself. But this is the paint palette we were working with yesterday with the BC Heatset Paints. If you remember the last video, I ended with coming back and adding into these two wells here. I played around adding in some citrus thinner. I added in some of the BC thinning medium. I added in some of the, or they already had liquid medium, or I added liquid medium to them. So, and then I ended up, when I had made a mess of the paint and it was all starting to separate, I added in the Exodus thinning oil to show you how that could pull it all back together when you had added other solvents that might cause your paints to separate. So here we are the next morning. This has been sitting overnight. It has not been covered. It sat right like this on my table. So what I wanted to show you now is I'm walking in here. This is how it looks first thing in the morning. Trying to keep moving around so you can see it all without the shadows getting on it of the room, because I don't have my lights set up. But so what I wanted to start with is take notice of this well right here, which is the vein blue, the BC Heatset vein blue, and all I added into that well was the liquid medium from BC Heatset Paint. And if I can zoom in, can you see there? Let me grab a toothpick. That all the paint pigment has settled to the bottom, and we have oil, the liquid medium, on the top, and they have not remained emulsified. So that tells me that, well, let me back up. I didn't have this knowledge completely myself. I have a really, really good friend who is a trained artist. She is trained and educated from not only in art school, in art and in painting and all different forms of mixed media, but she also understands the chemistry, has a lot of knowledge of chemistry on the products that are used in the market for art. So she's always my go-to person. When I have questions, I'm like, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? So her response to me about this one is that whenever you have paint that settles to the bottom and you have clear, medium, thinner, oil, whatever you want to call it, that floats to the top, that is an indication that this is indeed an oil. An oil-based product. It is some kind of oil. It could be a synthetic oil. It could be a vegetable oil. I've been reading around that, you know, there are some new things that have come out now that are made from some kind of a process where they take vegetable oil, like some soybean oil and some other oils. I don't know what all they're using. There's a new one out I was made aware of by her this morning called Miracle Medium, Miracle Oil. I can't remember now. But anyway, if you go to Jackson Arts, they've got it. So I'm not sure what exactly this is, but it is definitely an oil. You can see how it does. And it's a slow evaporating oil. And I honestly have come to the conclusion, I haven't gotten an answer now. We're talking about the liquid medium from BC Heatset Paints. But I've come to the conclusion that I'm 99% sure it does not have a heat setting agent in it. And the reason being is I've been on her Facebook group reading about it, and someone asked her the question, could this liquid medium be used as a primer? And she said no. Someone else asked her the question of, did you have to heat the liquid medium every time on every layer? And she replied yes, that you do, because if you don't, too much rubbing of the paint would cause you to lift the paint underneath. So that all tells me that I just don't think it has a heat setting agent in it. So I don't think it's a standalone heat set product. Not saying that's a negative. I'm just talking in terms of what it might be. So anyway, for that reason, that's why you would get it floating on the top and it's not staying completely emulsified when you mix the two together. So that's my thought process on the liquid medium. My other thought process is, and well, let me back up and say too that I did do some videos the other day where it does work well with Winton oils and it thins them down very well, but they're an oil-based paint and it heats that fine with the Winton oils. But once again, you're getting your increased slow dry time with the Winton oils, but you're not converting them further to a heat set product with this. And that's not a negative. I'm just saying that's just a different way of using it, but it's a way to use something other than solvent that would make your paint stay better dispersed in it. So in this well, this one was the one that I had the BC Heatset paint and the liquid medium in it, and I did my modeling color with it. And then I noticed, like what Terry was saying, and I'm not sure what she's been mixing hers with, but I noticed that also that, when you heat set it, it's so transparent. It was you get a very, very, very light, paint application, which is fine. A lot of us are used to doing that with our Genesis. But I decided to go back and add to this some of the thinning medium. So all that's in that mix is the paint, the liquid medium, and the thinning medium, because the thinning medium is very thick. And that would thicken it up some. And this is after sitting overnight. And it still has a thick look. Now, any of these that are on here the way they are, I wouldn't hesitate to add something to them to reconstitute them and start painting again today. I think they've all held up fine in that regard. But that's what it looks like if you use the thinning medium and the liquid medium together in your paint. And see, I can pull that down on the side of the bowl. I mean, it's still very well mixed. So that's not a problem at all. The thinning medium is a heat set agent. It does have a heat set agent in it. And so therefore it does convert whatever you're using to a heat set agent. So you could use the thinning medium and the liquid medium in with your Winton oils if you wanted to convert them to a heat set agent paint as well. For this one, let's see, I gotta find the brush I was using. Trying not to mix the paints. So for this one, I didn't show you, but when I stir it back up, see, it stirs right back up. So I can still use that. But I was just showing you that the oil does separate overnight, but it did not dry out. So that works well, too, if you want to just use the liquid medium. But just know that if you're using a product like Winton Oils that does not have a heat set agent in it, you're not adding a heat set agent with the Winton medium. Okay, and this one over here also just had... I'm sorry, I said Winton medium. I meant the BC liquid medium. And in this one over here, I had that almond color in it and just some of the liquid medium. And you see, it's doing pretty well. It has that oily look to it. You can see that just like the other. And also, the other thing about that one settling more is anytime you have blue pigments in something, blue pigments are always heavier. They always settle. Even with Genesis, you're going to see that. So that was the other thing. But the clear oil floating on the top was what indicates that that's definitely some kind of oil. But this one, the pigments did not settle as well, but it still needed a good stir. And it's good to go. You can still use that. And then the two pink ones, the lighter pink was the ones that I just mixed away, and I added some solvent. I added some of the thinning medium. I added in one of them, and then another one I just had the liquid medium. But I got to a point where if you added a lot of solvent, it started not looking very well. And that was when I grabbed my Exodus thinning oil, which is a heat set product, and I added that to these. And as you can see, they've stayed pretty well dispersed overnight. This one over here, I think this was the one that I added more of the BC, because when my palette was sitting here yesterday, it was like this. This one was the one I added more of the BC liquid medium to. This one was the one I added more of the thinning medium to. They both have solvent. And then I went back and added the Exodus to them. So both of them, this one was the one that maybe you saw a little more separation, but not much. Both of them have held up really well. And then see, when you start stirring, you see that oil of the liquid medium in there. And also my citrus solvent that I use has citrus oil in it, so you're going to see that, a little residue of that as well. So those stayed mixed really well. So there you go. There you have it. That's how everything looks the next morning. So any combination of these mediums right here, let me set them all out. Any combination of these works with these paints. You just have to decide what your end goal is, and you just have to be aware that if you're using the liquid medium by itself, that you do need to heat set every layer to cure it and dry it out, because it does, and it does not have, I don't think, a heat setting agent in it. So it's very important to heat set it as you go so that you dry it out and can keep working, because if you get too much of it, you're going to start having that oily, slippery slide around. And the way I would relate that would be, for those of you that have come from the air dry community, if you use a lot of retarder in your air dry paints, you run into that slippery sliding around. It's going to be the same kind of thing, is that you're going to have to heat set this as you go. You're not going to be able to add more than a couple of layers without having problems. But if you want to do that, you can paint more with just the thinning medium. And the thinning medium by itself, or with some solvent. Now, the other thing I didn't say yesterday that I wasn't aware of until I started reading more online is their thinning medium is more like a thick medium, because I'm seeing a lot of people are using it for their pore texture, and they say it works great for pore texture. And then, of course, you may have to put a little matte over it after you get done to matte it down, because I think it does leave some sheen behind. I haven't gotten to the point to be able to truly, out of focus here, there we go, to truly say for sure, because I'm, as I told y'all yesterday, I'm still in the process. Hey, Sauce, today I tried to mix Genesis Flesh 08 new formula, and I hated it. It's stringy and doesn't mix with the thinner. After suffering through mixing it, beat it up on the vinyl. Yes, that is a problem that the Genesis new formulas have. However, if you mix them with your thinner, and then you add the Exodus, and this goes back to my dear love of Exodus thinning medium, or thinning oil, that will fix it. Totally fixes it. Now, it's quite possible that if you have the BC, I can't get it in focus, the BC thinning medium, it's quite possible that that may fix it too. I haven't played with that one. I know, let me think. The Liquithin, I don't know how well it would work with the new formula Genesis, because the new formula Genesis was something a little different. And I know Liquithin does great with some things and some things not. I know one thing Esther was very clear about is that her paint line does not like oil, and do not mix oil in with her paint line. But yet I was able to use the Exodus thinning oil in her paint line, because it's not a true oil. It's a synthetic heat set oil. But this, being that it doesn't seem to be a heat set oil, I would not try mixing that with Esther's paint line. And probably that would not work with the new formula Genesis, I'm guessing. But because this is a heat set product, it should possibly work with that and fix that Genesis problem. But I do know for a fact that the Exodus thinning oil does, because I've done it before. Okay, so you can let me know, those of you that try the thinning medium from BC Paints, and if you mix it in with your new Genesis and it works or doesn't work, give me a shout out either way. I just picked up one of these bottles that was leaking and got my I think it was this liquid medium right here, and it definitely feels oily. That liquid medium is very, very fluid, almost like water, and it pours so fast. And ever since I've got it, you can see on the top of the bottle, it's just leaking out around that bottle lid. I don't like that bottle lid. So, but she does certify all this to be non-toxic, so I'm not worried about getting it on my hands. But you may still want to wear gloves with any of this. I don't wear gloves. I can't work that way, but that's just me.